It's week 8 of the high school football season with tons on the line in all the conferences. We'll talk about it and more in Prep Rally.
You're watching the Prep Rally Podcast.
Welcome to the Prep Rally Podcast, sponsored by West Termite, Pest and Lawn. Graham Thomas and Rick Fires here at our studios at the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette in Fayetteville. Leland Barclay joins us from the River Valley Democrat-Gazette offices in Fort Smith. And Rick Fires, it's like the return of summer this week. 88 degrees. Are you kidding me? Is this fall in Northwest Arkansas or what?
You know what? I already put up my winter. I climbed up the ladder. I got all my summer stuff packed away, brought down all my winter stuff, and now it's back to 88. Now I got to go back up there and reverse the whole situation.
I mean, Leland, you don't mind those 80-degree temperatures, do you?
It is an absolutely beautiful day in historic downtown Fort Smith today.
I tell you what, this is not right, and we need those cooler playoff temperatures like Leland was talking about last week on the show. So,
Yes.
But as I said, it's week 8. We've got 3 weeks left of the regular season for some teams, and maybe a little bit more for others. So let's dive right into Gimme 5 for this week with Leland Barclay. Take it away, Leland.
These are the top 5 performances in the River Valley of the last week. Of course, we always start with number 1, our River Valley Player of the Week. This week, it's senior running back Jaden Youngblood from Northside in a 49-14 win over Rogers Heritage on Friday night. Youngblood had 13 carries for 253 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Wow.
To help the grit.
I was going to say that was a historic performance, if I remember reading right in the paper.
Yes, it was the it was the most rushing yards for a Grizzly running back since Kaneko Logan in 1994 or 1995, a long time ago. The Grizzlies racked up 494 rushing yards on Friday night in the win to kind of set them into a part of the schedule that's a little more manageable than going up against Bentonville, Fayetteville, and Rogers in consecutive weeks. So we'll see what kind of springboard that does for the Grizzlies.
Did Henry make that schedule for them?
Well, it's a conference schedule,
okay.
so it's kind of given. It's kind of given to them.
Man, that's murderer's row right there. All right.
Well, that's a tough 3. It's kind of like, Hackett had to play Charleston, Boonville, and Mansfield 3 in a row to start off conference play. So it's kind of one of those things that, if they're not beat up physically and beat down mentally, then they get into a more manageable part of the conference schedule. And then number 2, running back Cameron Keller, a senior from Van Buren, in a 42-28 win over Southside on Friday night. Keller had 25 rushes for 150 yards and a school record 5 rushing touchdowns.
We have called his name quite a bit here on the Gimme 5 this year, Cameron Keller. He ought to just kind of become a member of the cast, I think.
Well, there's some familiar names for sure because these guys are just putting up, monster numbers and having a terrific season. Of course, we all know these guys. Every week we mention running backs and quarterbacks, but how about those big guys up front? Because without them, none of this stuff happens, especially Friday night. I think it was his 4th touchdown in the 3rd quarter. No, it's the 3rd one. I think it was the 3rd quarter, the 3rd touchdown that he scored through the right side. I mean, it was just a gaping hole, and he just scored untouched, standing up, which doesn't happen very often. Also in that win, quarterback Elijah Johnson threw for 227 yards and a 45-yard touchdown pass to Austin Riggs in that win. And then number 3. Usually we stick to the victors, the winners in this, but I tell you, because to the victors go the spoils. Well, in that same game, Wilson Key, Southside's quarterback, completed 22 of 38 passes for 393 yards and 4 second-half touchdowns, including 3 within a 7-minute span that had Southside within 35-21, even though the continuously running clock was going.
Yeah, I gotta tell, I Rick, I had to call Leland about this one on Saturday afternoon because the running clock started with 3 minutes left or so in the third quarter, and yet they still scored between the two of them at that point. Still scored 35 more points. I
With the
mean,
running clock.
with the running clock going, and not to mention it, Leland. You're talking about Wilson Key. He's filling in for Blake Forsgren. So he's usually a receiver for Southside.
Absolutely. So he fills in, at quarterback, and it's a reason why Cameron Keller was able to get that fifth rushing touchdown, the school record, was because they still needed him in the game along with the rest of the starters because it's 35-21 midway of the fourth quarter, and it was that next touchdown run by Keller that made it 42-21. Because at that point, Southside, like I said, had scored 3 touchdowns in 7 minutes. They'd gotten an onside kick, and so it was getting pretty exciting there as the clock continued to run.
Amazing.
And then number 4, another familiar name. What would the show be without Kane Archer, quarterback for Greenwood, putting up huge numbers again? He threw 4 touchdown passes on Friday night, and he did have 3 incomplete passes. So 3 incomplete passes on Friday night, 4 touchdowns. And Greenwood, one of the marks of their team lately has kind of been, such balance offensively. Well, Friday night in that 49-14 win over Lake Hamilton, Greenwood rushed for 248 yards and passed for 251 as a team.
The old 499 team total offense. I love it.
That's right. Yep. And then number 5, Josiah Posey, another quarterback from Pensacola, sophomore, having another monster season. 526 yards passing and 6 touchdowns in Pecola's 62-36 win on Friday. Braden Hardwick, 7 catches for 236 yards and 2 touchdowns.
These are like video game numbers. And just, an astounding amount of offense being put up.
It's amazing to me compared to what it was 10, 20 years ago.
All right.
And that's the top 5 for the River Valley.
Wow. I tell you what, that Posey's having a pretty good year there for Pensacola. I mean, he was it last week or was it the week before that he had another crazy passing outing? That's just hard for my mind that likes to 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of offense. But
and he is leading the state of Oklahoma in passing.
All right. Well, that will lead us into our River Valley Sports Report, Leland. It's another big week in store for the River Valley football. So why don't you tell us what's happening?
2 gigantic games going on in the River Valley this week. Of course, Boonville at Mansfield, that big 3A1 game. And then this week on the River Valley Sports Report, we debut our Oklahoma Helmets, Poto and Salisaw. They get together for a big rivalry game on Friday night. Of course, it's a big rivalry game, but it's also a huge game in the 4A4 district. Both teams are 3-1, 1 game behind the league leader, Broken Bow. So it's a huge game, not only between the LaFleur and Sequoia County rivals, but also for a good finish in the district and possibly a home playoff game. So a huge game there. And of course, Boonville and Mansfield, gigantic game. Both of them won last week. It sets up what could be another big game next week, Boonville at Charleston, but I'm sure they're focused on Mansfield this week. So some big games. And really, as we look back now a little bit this past week, 3 kind of big questions come about. Can Northside keep that momentum going after that win over Heritage? Can Van Buren ride that momentum with that win over Southside as they go up against Greenwood? And then also, is Mansfield, do they really belong being mentioned in the same breath as, Boonville at this point? So 3 big questions going into this week.
Rick's already giving his answer on that.
Do what?
I said Rick's already given his answer on that one.
I just threw in a quick
Well, we'll
no.
see. And then cross country's wrapping up. The state meets in a couple of weeks at Van Buren's cross country meet on Saturday. Olivia Prothrow from Mountainburg finished second in the small school girls race. And then Eli Adams from Van Buren finished third in the big school. And of course, volleyball's wrapping up. Senior nights will be conducted this week, and probably no bigger one than at Southside, where these seniors have just had a phenomenal season. And Tuesday night, they're going to wrap up senior night. And then also in volleyball, the regional tournaments are going on this week. Hackett is the #1 seed in the 2A North regional. That's going Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then Mansfield and Paris are both #1 seeds in the 3A North regional at Mansfield.
You know, it's crazy. This time next week, we'll all be scrambling out of here to go cover volleyball matches for state tournaments. So that'll.
Is there one at Prairie Grove?
No, there's not one at Prairie Grove. There's the Prairie Grove is hosting regionals this week, I think. But in state, we'll have one we'll have two in Northwest Arkansas. I think it's at Harbor and at Huntsville. And then in the River Valley, there's one at Paris, there's one at Hackett, and one at Van Buren. So it's going to be a crazy busy week next week with all that volleyball for sure. And then all the state finals are going to be on November 2nd at Banco ZK Arena in Hot Springs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good stuff, Leland. We're going to take a break. As we go to a break, we'll leave you with some video from some of our River Valley football games this past week. This is Prep Rally. And we're back with the Prep Rally podcast, sponsored by West Termite Pest and Lawn. Leland Barclay is in the River Valley, and Rick Fires joins me in the Northwest Arkansas studios. And we're going to jump on our top 5 of the week for Northwest Arkansas. And without any further ado, here is Rick Fires.
I got to start off with our game of the week, Bentonville and Fayetteville. Man, did I miss this one. I picked Fayetteville in a close game. Wasn't close at all. Bentonville 41, Fayetteville 10. Trevor Grant, 272 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Just a tremendous effort by. We kept telling y'all don't be concerned about Bentonville's 0-3 start, and boom, here they come. Now they're in the lead for the conference, which they've won many times. Mm-hmm. But before you, Fayetteville fan, don't get too far down, because there's been times too where Bentonville wins the conference and then Fayetteville gets them in the playoffs. I've seen that a few times, as has Leland and Graham as well. So totally missed that one. Here's another one I picked Elkins in this game, but I had no idea it was going to be a blowout. The final there was Elkins 52, Prairie Grove 0. And this is a Prairie Grove team that's been scoring 40, 50. They scored 62 points against Berryville, I think, a few weeks back. But just a dominant performance by Elkins. Ben Napier, man, if you hadn't seen this, it's amazing how they got some good quarterbacks over there. Of course, Zach Watson was the offensive coordinator at Greenwood. He knows all about quarterback play. Ben Napier, 5 touchdown passes. And they're the reason they're #1 in the state. And not only do they got a bunch of skilled position players, they got some big old country boys that can play. And Elkins won this game without, help me if I mess his name, Jaquay Walden. He was in street clothes. He didn't even play. And still yet they were able to just dominate Prairie Grove. And, Prairie Grove didn't help themselves. They turned the ball over 4 times in the first half within their own 35-yard lines. So, they were just it looked to me like they were shell-shocked. That's 28 points right there. So, Prairie Grove's got to get together next week, because they got to go on the road again, grab it. All right, Shiloh Christian. I got to go with Shiloh Christian, 46-21 over Russellville. I have the honor of picking our player of the week for Northwest Arkansas, and all these offensive numbers every week, 400 yards passing, 300 yards rushing, blah, all that stuff receiving. I said, man, give me a defensive guy. I want to make a defensive guy our player of the week. My man A.J. Yanin from Shiloh Christian had 2 interception returns in the first quarter. He returned the first one 45 yards, and about a minute and a half later, he returned another interception, 28 yards for a touchdown. So they had, Shiloh Christian had in all 5 interceptions, 3 of them returned for touchdowns. You know, we talk a lot about Shiloh's Christian prolific offense. They've been doing it for years, decades. And sometimes you think, I said, man, their defense kind of gets overlooked. But their defense was the one that sparked this win right there. I mean, they just blasted them from the get-go, and the defense led the charge. All right, I mentioned Gravett. Gravett's still rolling, 57-0 over Berryville. Gravett 7-0. Gabe Holmes rushed for 120 yards, only 6 carries. I'm assuming I didn't see the game. I didn't see any live stream, so I guess they got up early and then just kind of, just finished them off there. And Prairie Grove, man, I know y'all are better than what you showed over at Elkins, and you better get ready too, because you got a test. You got to turn around and play at Gravett to 7-0.
Yeah, they're going into the Lions' Den, aren't they?
Yeah, they go from one Lions' Den to another. I mean, they did without a break. So I think Prairie Grove's better than they showed. Let's see if the Tigers more competitive in this game. Finally, at Springdale, man, I've been touting Springdale, man, 6-0, rolling. I love what they've been doing, but they got a big-time reality check last week against Rogers. Rogers 48, Springdale 9. First loss of the year for Springdale. They couldn't do it. One of my favorite players for Rogers, for anybody up here in Northwest Arkansas or Arkansas, the state of Arkansas, Jeff Reagan ran for 2 touchdowns, threw for 2 scores. They couldn't do anything with them. Now, the trick for Springdale, okay, you're disappointed in that loss right there. The challenge is do not let that one disappointing loss turn into 2 losses or 3 losses or 4 losses. So hopefully they can get it turned around, but they got to play at Fayetteville. And I know Fayetteville, nobody should want to get on the field more quickly, faster than Fayetteville, because they had a pretty bad showing up there at Bentonville. And they're not as bad as they showed. So Springdale, man, you better get ready. You're going into Fayetteville, and they're going to be hungry, so that'd be a good game. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. Let's see. That's all I got for now.
Well, what is it they say, Rick, that, it's never really as good as it looks, and it's never really as bad as it looks.
Exactly,
so.
Yeah.
Now, that was crazy, though. You mentioned that Russellville-Shiloh game. I was talking to Coach Barnard yesterday, and he said that was just wild how out of hand quickly that got with all those pick sixes. And because there was another pick six, that third one by Carter Henley,
Yep.
who was one of our guys that was on the preseason list. And them Shiloh boys are some big old kids now.
They are.
I know you did a feature on one of them that's going to come out later this week, and I mean there's some dudes over there.
Hudson Ball. I mean, he walked up to me, and I said, man, he's like a big old Western cowboy kind of guy. He had his boots on. This is after practice. He's about 6'3", maybe, and about 240, and he's a hoss. And they put him at defensive line. They put him at fullback when they needed some tough yardage. He's taking direct snaps at center. Just a really good athlete, and they got him over there. I watched them all come out, and I was like, man, they got that beautiful new indoor field house over there.
Oh, yeah. That thing just towers over the stadium over there.
Oh,
it's
my
wild.
goodness. And you know what? It's one of them, I've seen some of them that you can't hardly do. The ceiling, the roof is high enough where you can almost do a kicking game in there, too. So, I loved it when I went through the foyer right there, and they got some beautiful trophies and pictures of the 1998 team. And then I look over to the left. I say, okay, that's just the locker room. it's not just any locker room; it's the Rhett Lashley locker room. So there's kind of, he's the coach at SMU right now. I think they're 6-1, doing a really good job. So they really got it going over at Shiloh Christian.
All right. Well, let's dive into our Northwest Arkansas sports report, and number one on the list, Rick Fires. Can you believe it? It's basketball season.
No, I refuse to believe it. I'm not going to believe it. No.
Well, we had, and this is going to
Yeah.
kind of be blending some worlds here. We had our River Valley Basketball Media Day last Thursday down at the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and then the very next day we had Northwest Arkansas Basketball Day. Had more than 74 teams combined show up, more than 300 athletes and coaches, and really, really happy to host all those people. But we were just kind of hanging around at Northwest Arkansas Basketball Media Day, and Henry Apple, our sports writer, says, guys, there's a game Tuesday we need to cover. And, of course, the bigger schools haven't started basketball yet, but there are quite a few schools around here that are basketball only. They don't play football, and this is kind of their big deal. And Valley Springs and Ozark Catholic are two of those schools, and have some really good basketball players among them. And so they're playing, tonight, Tuesday night, over at Ozark Catholic, and we're covering it and shooting it. So we'll look forward to having coverage of that one. But I don't know if I'm ready for it either, Rick. I mean, it's just basketball season, just a whole different animal, and there's going to be that, that little where basketball overlap. Yeah, where basketball's still playing and football's playing, and we get a little bit of that in the spring too. But I tell you what, it goes quick.
When I think of basketball, I'm just thinking January, then February, then March and April. But the little schools, like even Bergman, man, they're a basketball only. I mean, they don't play for. I'm sure they got tennis and stuff, but they're big time players. And we're in that transition, and slowly, we went from baseball to football to basketball. I don't know. Is anybody around here playing hockey? I don't know, but it seemed like it just keeps going and going. But once we'll make that transition, it'd be fun to get into it.
Well, if memory serves, you're going to be at Fayetteville High on Friday night. But what's going to be happening just a few feet over at Bud Walton Arena Friday night while you're covering that football game is, the Razorbacks are going to be hosting Kansas in in that exhibition basketball game. So, I mean, just that'll be a packed house. It will be. So
well, I have to leave the house at 4:00 though, so I can avoid all that traffic.
So, we mentioned the tennis. Well, we didn't. I guess we didn't mention the tennis, but the state overall tennis tournament is going on this week. We had state championships last week, and local teams from here did really well. Bentonville
girls.
And Rogers?
Wasn't it Rogers boys?
Rogers boys, I think.
Yeah.
And several of our smaller schools did well. Just a lot of really good, successful stories coming out of the tennis scene. They're doing the state overall tournament this week, and that's a real interesting kind of tournament because it takes, regardless of classification, tennis and golf, they do stuff like that. Now you're old enough to remember when they used to do stuff like that in basketball here, where they would play an overall tournament.
Oh my goodness. Leland, I'm sure he covered some overalls. I love the old format where, a 5A school or a 4A school knock off a 6A, 7A school, or whatever they was, the 5A, 4A, 3A, 2A winner. And we had, years and years ago, we had our own Hoosiers here when the little town Parkdale, Arkansas, right on the Louisiana border, with Danny Ebbs, I think, was the coach. And they come up and beat all the big teams, including Blytheville. They won the overall. But I remember it quit maybe, I don't know, early 90s. Do you have any idea when they quit doing overall for basketball, Leland?
Yeah, it's been a long time ago. And the reason why they quit doing it was that the winning coaches, the championship coaches of those teams, They had just won a state title.
Yep.
They didn't want to end the season with a loss.
Yep. I
They wanted
remember
to go
them.
out with the state championship as the final memory.
Yep.
Well, and at some point I could see them doing something like that with the other overall tournaments like tennis and golf and but right now they're still going on and so that's happened this week
If if I'm a 4A or 3, somebody at a little bitty school, and say like Bergman, I think they got a tennis team. I'd want to challenge myself against because it's kind of an individual sport as well. I'd
For
want to
sure.
see how I could do against the 6A champion. So for that sport, I think it's fine. I can understand why the coaches didn't like it for basketball, but man, it deprived us of some great memories, some great games. I always loved those games.
just like Leland mentioned, regional volleyball tournaments are happening this week. It's the last week of conference play for the 6A West and the 5A West up here and in the River Valley for that matter for volleyball. Next week will be state tournaments, so we'll be diving into that pretty seriously next week. And then football, big matchup this week is Rogers at Bentonville. As we were talking about before we came on the show, it's been since 2006 since Rogers has beaten Bentonville. They won it in spectacular fashion in 2006, and it's been all Tigers since then. And what used to be called the Battle of Benton County. There's so many football playing big schools in Benton County now, you can't really call it that anymore.
Yep, exactly.
And then, Springdale's at Fayetteville. And then, like you talked about, Prairie Grove heading to Gravette. And we're excited to get to have Henry Apple go out to Gravette this week to see the Lions play. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll get into who you got. But before we go to break, we'll leave you with some video from last week's games in Northwest Arkansas. This is Prep Rally. Welcome back to the Prep Rally Podcast, sponsored by West Termite Pest and Lawn. Graham Thomas with Rick Fires in the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette studios. And Leland Barclay joins us in the River Valley. It's time for Who You Got, guys. Let's take a quick glance at the standings. Everybody went 6-2 last week. So the Rick Fires is still in the lead with a record of 47-17. I am one game back at 46-18, and Leland is still 4 games back at 43-21.
You know what?
Graham,
Go ahead.
I think you should get an additional half point because if I remember correctly, you did pick Elkins big, and I think me and Rick were kind of we thought the game would be much, much, much closer. So I think you ought to get a half point for picking that one and being right in the fact that Elkins ran away with that game.
Oh, if only. That's
You know what? And I should be deducted a whole point because not only did I get that one, I thought it was going to be a close game, but I got totally misfired on Fayetteville and Bentonville. I thought that'd be a close game, and Bentonville just waxed them.
I just had a feeling going into that one that it wasn't that something just felt because I left media day on Friday at Arvest Ballpark and went right over to Bentonville, and I was there for about 3 hours, just getting all my normal Friday work done, and I just by the mid afternoon I had a sense that Bentonville was going to.
You felt the vibes, huh?
I just did. I don't know what The LSU Tigers were coming in later that day to go train at Bentonville's TAC, or actually it would be the next morning, and maybe they were fired up about that. I'm not sure, but all right. So let's get into who you got this week, guys, and we're going to start off with our River Valley Game of the Week, as I call it. It's going to be the Boonville at Mansfield, and since people care least about what I think on these picks, right? I'm gonna go with my pick first. What a setting this is gonna be. Mansfield. If you ever gone through Mansfield on Highway 71,
been
the complex kind of sits off to the as you're traveling south, it's on the right, and what a setting that's gonna be Friday night. Both teams are undefeated in conference play. Mansfield's going to be really fired up for this. But I tell you what, the Booneville Bearcats are coming in. They're defending state champions. They are undefeated and I believe tied for number 1 in the Arkansas Sports Media Poll. Give me the Booneville Bearcats to take a win on the road at Mansfield. Rick Fires, start us off. Who you got?
2 words right here. You talk about how good a setting it's going to be there. Mansfield fans fired up. 2 words, though. Ain't scared. Booneville ain't scared of that. They've been in hostile places before, and I like Booneville big in this one.
Now, Leland Mansfield was his preseason pick to win the conference, so we'll see if he stands true to that today.
Da-da-da-da-da.
I always loved watching Lee Corso on game day. He's always one of my favorites. And so in his honor, Rick and Graham, not so fast, my friends. and in the Rick Fire stat of the day, get this. Now remember, this is in 7 games played this season. Booneville has thrown 23 passes, attempted 23 passes. Mansfield has attempted 21 passes this year. In 7 games. Mansfield is averaging 7.9 yards per carry. Booneville is averaging 7.2 yards per carry. And Booneville leads this series 62 to 16 to 3. That's a 78.4 winning percentage for the Bearcats against the Tigers. But you know what? This is this year. It's at Mansfield. Biggest win in Mansfield history may be in the making. I'm going with Mansfield, who I picked to win the conference on Friday night.
Wow.
I like it.
Big time.
I like it. All right. We'll move over to Class 4A. We've talked about this one quite a bit already. Prairie Grove at Gravette. The Lions are 7-0 and roaring. Prairie Grove is tucking their tail a little bit after they got they got mashed.
They just got embarrassed
at Elkins. Prairie Grove at Gravette. I'm going to go first here. Hard to go against the Lions right now. They're rolling. Prairie Grove might be licking their wounds a little bit. Give me Gravette to get the win against Prairie Grove in the Lions' den. Leland, who you got in this one?
I think that, yes, Prairie Grove's licking their wounds, but they didn't lick them very long. I still think that they're the second best team in the conference. Last week's game just shows that there's a much bigger divide than maybe what most of us thought. I still think Prairie Grove's the second best team in that conference. They'll get a home playoff game, and they win on Friday night.
All right. Rick Fires, who you got?
Man, I'm with Leland on that one. A good analysis right there. Danny Absher got rid of those licking the wounds thing. He got them back out there. They're working again. Their pride has been hurt. And when your pride gets hurt, you should come out there and show the people that you're better. We're better than you thought we were. So I respect a lot. I think Gravette's been kind of a surprise. Leland said Prairie Grove in the preseason coaches poll, Prairie Grove was a second pick. So I think Prairie Grove bounces back and proves themselves this week at Gravette.
Wow. All right. Class 4A, a little bit. This one is going to be interesting. Pottsville at Lamar, a couple teams in the middle of the conference, but who definitely felt like they would be in the mix. The Apaches are, I believe, 2-2 in conference. Lamar is a surprising 1-3. I'm gonna go the Pottsville Apaches to win at Lamar. Rick Fires, who you got?
You know what? The only thing I know about Pottsville is that it's somewhere down there by Conway. I like Lamar. I like their coach down there, but I'm going to go with Pottsville as well.
Leland, who you got in this one?
As I know that November is still a ways off, especially the playoffs. This is a case where I think the playoffs kind of begin for Lamar this week, and I think Lamar bounces back and keeps their playoff hopes alive, especially since they're at home on Friday night.
What a tough conference that's been too. I mean, it was wild last year, and it's brutal again this year. Oh man, you could have easily made a case for this one being game of the week, and if it were being played up here or in the river, if it would be being played in our area, then we'd definitely be all over it. Farmington at Morrilton, Tommy Tice and the guys making the trip down to Morrilton, as I've heard it called. I've been to a game at Morrilton. That's not an easy place to win. Um, I you know I'm just gonna be the Debbie Downer this week, guys. Devil Dogs, Morrilton. Uh, really good quarterback play. Um, Leland, who you got in this one?
Yeah, like you said, two fantastic quarterbacks in this game. And I think, again, the difference is who's at home. And I think Morrilton's really good. A lot of these seniors played as sophomores. I think Morrilton wins this game and wins the conference.
Rick Fires, who you got?
You know what? A lot of times I would pick Morrilton. They got the speed. They're going to be at home. But man, something about this Farmington team, they've really under Tommy Tyson, his staff, they got these kids believing, and I think Farmington might go down there and surprise them. So I'm taking Farmington.
All right. We're going to hang a little close to Morrilton, just go up the road a little bit to Russellville, where the Cyclones, coming off that terrible performance at Shiloh Christian, are going to host Fort Smith Southside, who started off terrible against Van Buren and really got back in the game and made a game of it. So, you know what, guys? This is the week where Southside gets it done. They're going to use that momentum that they had at the end of last game, and they're going to come out and win at Russellville. Rick Fires, who you got?
You know what? I got Southside as well, and hey, Russellville, man, maybe you guys ought to work on that passing game a little bit. But yeah, I'll take Southside in this one.
Leland, who you got?
Absolutely. I think Southside, bounces back. I know they're 0-4, but this is a big game. This could be a three-way tie for that last playoff spot, possibly. So, or at least maybe even the fifth seed. I think Southside wins.
Here's another game with big playoff implications in Class 7A. Fort Smith Northside making the trip up to play Springdale Harbor, and I'll tell you what, a lot to play for these two teams. The Cats lost a tough one last week to Bentonville West by 1 point, and I think that motivation is going to be just enough for Springdale Harbor to get past Fort Smith Northside close. Harbor. Leland, who you got?
I agree with motivation, but I agree with who's got it. I think Northside not only has motivation, but they also have some momentum going now. I think they've finally kind of found themselves, and I think Northside goes on the road and wins at Harbor.
I'll tell you what, if they rush for 490 yards again, they're sure going to win. That was as impressive as I've seen from a stat line there. Rick Fires, who you got in this one?
You know, I kind of like what you're thinking right there. They had a chance; they could have tied it, but Harbor went for the win there. Guts, and you got to give them credit for that. They just barely missed winning that game, and I think that confidence will carry over. You can't hold that against them that they went for two and they failed. They played a really good game up there at West, so I think they will come home, and I think they will beat Northside in a close game.
All right, Springdale and Fayetteville, Battle of the Bulldogs. Boy, this one used to be a classic back in the day. It's not been not been what it has been over the years. But two teams coming off of performances they felt like they should have been better in.
Yeah.
This one's at Fayetteville Harmon Field. I think Fayetteville will come out. Like you said, Rick, they probably can't wait to get out there this week, and I'm sure Springdale feels the same way. But I'm going to take Fayetteville to beat Springdale this week. Big bounce back for Fayetteville. Leland, who you got?
You know, I think there are more Bulldogs in the state of Arkansas than any other mascot, but make no mistake, this is the Battle of the Bulldogs. In fact, I think it was 1918, they decided to play a game, the game against each other to decide who got to keep that mascot. The other one had to be something else. Well, they tied. So they played another one. They tied. So they just decided at that point, will both be Bulldogs. This is the 127th meeting between these two schools. That's more than any other schools in the state have met each other. It goes back to 1908. Springdale leads the series 62 to 50 to 14, and Fayetteville's won 15 straight. After Friday night, it'll be 16 straight.
And Leland, didn't Springdale, when Gerald Williams was there, didn't they used to dominate Fayetteville back in the day?
Yeah, I think they won 13 straight at one point under Gerald Williams. The 15 straight is the longest streak in the series. But yeah, Springdale, they built that huge lead, 62 to 50 to 14 now. Fayetteville's been able to close the gap, but it's only been recently.
You know what? This is still a big, even though there's Harbor now, but this is still a long-standing. I think there's some tradition there. The people in Springdale and Fayetteville will be fired up for it, but I think Fayetteville bounces back and wins this game as well.
Well, and what was it one year where they, and I don't remember which one it was. I think it was Springdale hired somebody and they flew over the stadium and dropped purple marshmallows on the stadium.
They used to do all kind of shenanigans back in the day.
Speaking of long-standing rivalries, it leads us to our game of the week and our last pick of the day. We're looking at, I believe the 121st meeting of the Battle of Rogers and Bentonville, and if you look at the numbers, Rogers has long dominated this rivalry, 70 to 44 to 6. But as Leland said, Rogers has not won this game since 2006. They split in 2008. Bentonville didn't split for another about 8 years or so. Bentonville's won 17 straight games in this contest. And the Tigers are at home at Tiger Stadium, where they generally play pretty well. So, that makes the choice easier for me. I'm taking Bentonville to take care of Rogers again. I expect it to be a really good offensive kind of game, but Bentonville, I've got the Bentonville Tigers beating Rogers. Leland, who do you got?
I've said all along that I think Rogers has the best defense, especially the front seven in the conference. And Rogers is really wanting that marquee win, and this would be that game. But I picked Bentonville to win the conference before the season. I see no reason to change that. Bentonville wins at home, which is big as well on Friday night in this game.
All right, Rick, who you got?
When I talked to Chad Harbison before the season began, I told him, I said, man, you guys are real consistent. You're winning 9 games. You're winning 8 games, 9 games a year. He said, yeah, Rick, but we hadn't gotten over the hump yet. He's talking about playoff success and so forth. You know what? This would give them a real springboard in the postseason. But, man, those numbers don't lie. So I'm going to go with Bentonville.
All right. Well, folks, that will wrap up this week's edition of Prep Rally. We'd like to thank our sponsor, West Termite Pest and Lawn. And you can watch the Prep Rally podcast on nwaonline.com or wherever you get your podcasts. For Leland Barclay in the River Valley, for Rick Fires in Northwest Arkansas, Graham Thomas signing off. We love you.